You'll never be anything, Nova. You're just embarrassing. That's what my Aunt Lisa said, in front of everyone, just minutes before the notary handed me the document that would silently flip the world upside down. They laughed at my shoes, joked about my apartment, and whispered that I probably took the bus to the family dinner. What they didn't know? I owned the building they were sitting in. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe underdogs always rise. This one's for every quiet warrior out there. The dinner was at Uncle Greg's house. Well, what used to be his house. It was supposed to be a simple family get-together. But it turned into a roast session. All directed at me. Nova, the quiet one. The one who didn't make it. The one they thought was still struggling after dropping out of college. Lisa kept showing off her diamond bracelet, claiming her husband bought it in cash after a single bonus check. Uncle Greg talked about generational wealth and how some people just aren't cut out to carry the legacy. I sat quietly, chewing my overcooked steak, while every sentence hit me like a slap. They had no idea I was the reason the electricity in that mansion still worked. 3 years ago, I vanished from their lives. They thought I gave up, but I had. Moved to a one-bedroom unit downtown, eating instant noodles and spending nights learning contract law, real estate flipping, and private equity. Every dollar I earned went straight into my company, quietly buying out debt, foreclosed assets, and distressed properties. One of those distressed assets, my uncle's massive house. They had defaulted 6 months ago, but I kept the lights on, out of sentiment. I let them live here, rent-free, while they mocked me to my face. But now, as they laughed over dessert, the doorbell rang. Everyone went silent. I stood up calmly. That's for me. A man in a navy suit walked in, holding a leather folder. He greeted me by name, ignoring everyone else, and opened the document. Lisa scoffed. What now, Nova? Signing up for another dead-end job? I smiled. First time all night. No, just finalizing a transfer of ownership. This house, and 4 others in the family trust, are now under my name. Dead silence. Greg blinked. What? That's not possible. I turned the folder around and let him read the paper. His face went pale. Remember the refinancing deal you signed last fall? The one with the quiet investor who bailed you out of bankruptcy? I leaned closer. That was me. Lisa's bracelet clinked against her glass as she dropped it. But why didn't you tell us? She stuttered. Because you never asked. You just assumed I was losing, while I was busy winning in silence. I could feel their panic rising. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because what came next wasn't just a change in ownership. It was something that would crush everything they thought they knew about me. Uncle Greg lunged toward the document like grabbing it would somehow erase the truth. This is a joke, right? A prank? I didn't flinch. No joke, Greg. This house, the vacation cabin in Colorado, the downtown duplex Lisa brags about owning, they're all part of the foreclosure bundle you signed away last October. You needed a bailout. I gave you one. He looked like someone had just punched him in the throat. Lisa's voice cracked. You're not even qualified to handle this kind of money. You were failing, Nova. You used to live in your car. I looked her dead in the eye. And while I lived in that car, I studied every contract, every loophole, every silent asset you people were blind to. I didn't ask for help, because I knew help would come with strings. So I built my own empire quietly. The silence in the room was louder than their laughter had ever been. Aunt Cheryl, who hadn't spoken much all night, finally whispered, "How much are you even worth now?" I shrugged. More than enough to buy every mortgage tied to this family name. And I did. Uncle Greg dropped into a chair like someone had unplugged his spine. This can't be legal. Oh, it's legal. You signed every dotted line. You were just too arrogant to read the fine print. Lisa's hands trembled. So what now? You're kicking us out? I walked over to the mantel and picked up the family portrait they'd taken last Christmas, one I wasn't invited to. No, I'm giving you 2 weeks. After that, you can either start paying me rent or find a new place to mock people from. The rage on their faces almost made me feel bad. Almost. But then Greg spat. You think you've won? You've just ruined this family, Nova. I looked around the room. The same room where I used to sit quietly while they told me I was too soft, not man enough, not smart enough. The same room where they let my mom cry alone after Dad left, where they mocked me for working at gas stations, where they acted like they were kings and I was dirt. No, I said quietly. I didn't ruin this family. You did. I just signed the paperwork. That should have ended the conversation. But it didn't. Because just when I thought I had exposed everything, one of them pulled out something that changed everything again, and this time I was the one caught off guard. Lisa stood up slowly, her eyes locked on me, and for the first time all night, she wasn't angry. She was smiling. You really think you're the only one who's been playing the long game, Nova? She said, reaching into her handbag. I watched her closely. My gut twisted. She pulled out a sleek black folder, one I recognized instantly. My company's original investor agreement, the private one, the one that was supposed to be locked in my safe. She slid it across the table. You left this at Mom's house 2 years ago, remember? The night you crashed there after your tire blew out? You thought we didn't look through it, but we did. We made copies. I felt the heat rush to my face. So? She leaned in, her voice syrupy sweet. So, there's a clause in here. Page 14, section 3.2. If the initial seed investor doesn't meet quarterly revenue within 24 months, and if a certain signature is absent on the amended clause. She tapped the folder. Control defaults to the co-signers. My heart skipped. That clause. I'd completely forgotten. Because 2 years ago, when I needed my first investment to start the business, no bank would approve me. I begged everyone. No one helped, except my cousin Brandon. And now, out of nowhere, he stood up. Brandon, who had sat silently all night, looking at his phone. He finally looked up. Yeah, I co-signed it. With Lisa. My stomach dropped. You gave me $8,000. I whispered. You said it was a gift. He shrugged. It was, until it wasn't. Lisa's grin widened. So unless you somehow amended that clause and filed it with the board, guess what, genius? You might own these properties, but we own your company. I froze, because she wasn't lying. My company. Everything I'd built. It could all be yanked from under me because of one overlooked signature. Greg stood up again, emboldened. So, Nova, ready to negotiate now? I clenched my jaw. I had planned for everything. I'd buried myself in contracts, risk models, backup strategies. I built the empire from scratch. But I forgot about Brandon's signature. And now, if what Lisa said was true, they didn't just want revenge. They wanted to take it all back. But then, just as panic started to creep in, a thought hit me. A memory. Faint. Blurry. But possibly game-changing. Something about a clause. A hidden amendment. And one person I'd trusted enough to secretly file it when no one else believed in me. If I was right, I still had one move left. But if I was wrong, everything I built would vanish by morning. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm, even though my mind was racing. No one here knew the real Nova, the one who spent nights buried in legal files, the one who quietly fought back while pretending to be beaten. Let me tell you. Something, I said, locking eyes with each of them. I didn't just sign papers and hope for the best. When Brandon co-signed that contract, I knew the risk, so I made sure there was a secret backup, something they couldn't see. Lisa raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. Backup? You're bluffing. I smiled. No bluff. A week after, that investment. I had a lawyer file an amendment to the company bylaws. It gave me sole control if any shareholder tried to seize power without meeting the terms. I pulled out my phone and tapped quickly. Here, I said, showing them the screen. The timestamp on the digital amendment was from 6 months ago, perfectly valid and legally binding. Greg snatched the phone, trying to scroll, but the document was locked. How did you... I paid extra for a private filing, I said. No paper trail for you to find, and the law's clear. That amendment overrides everything else. Lisa's confident smile faltered. You think this changes anything? You still can't just kick us out. I leaned in closer. Oh, I'm not kicking anyone out. I'm giving you a choice. Start paying fair rent to me, or find somewhere else to live by next month. And if you try to challenge this legally, I'm ready. The room was tense. The power had shifted, and suddenly I wasn't the poor, invisible cousin anymore. I was the one holding the cards. But just when I thought it was over, Brandon whispered from the corner, You might have won this round, Nova, but you'll regret crossing us. I met his gaze without fear. We'll see. The family that once mocked me now looked at me with a mix of shock and fear. They had underestimated me for years. But the quiet ones always have the loudest comebacks. This was just the beginning. Days passed, but the atmosphere at every family gathering changed. Cold, tense, like we were all actors stuck in a bad play waiting for the final scene. But while they nursed their bruised egos, I was already moving. Quiet calls, meetings with lawyers, new deals signed in secret. My empire wasn't just about properties anymore. It was about control, respect, and proving that nobody should ever underestimate the underdog. Then came the real surprise. One evening, as I was reviewing contracts, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a video. In it, Uncle Greg was talking to a group of investors, behind closed doors, about trying to sell some family assets without my knowledge. He sounded desperate, worried about the cash flow problems he'd never admitted publicly. And that wasn't all. The video ended with Greg saying, If Nova keeps pushing, we might lose everything. I realized then that the battle wasn't just about ownership anymore. It was about survival, for all of us. But here's the twist. They were planning something bigger than I expected. Something that could destroy everything I worked for if I didn't act fast. Because while I had the paperwork, they still controlled the narrative, family gossip, old allies, and secrets I didn't know. I had to decide. Fight fire with fire, or risk losing everything I just won. And deep down, I knew the stakes were higher than just money or houses. It was about who I really was. The question was, would they ever accept that Nova wasn't the poor cousin anymore? Or would they keep trying to bury me? One thing was clear. This war was far from over.